This is very unpalatable to contemplate, but I think we've seen enough that we have to think about it seriously. So, at some level, right, of all the forces in Iran, Ahmadinejad, because in some ways of the extremely unpleasant rhetoric he chooses to use, Ahmadinejad is the only one who either can or in any way might seem to want to make a deal with the U.S. And now imagine a scenario where we finally do have the successful Green Revolution and a new government comes to power, but it's rather tenuous and it's gotten to remain a hold on the, at least 30 to 40 to who knows what the real percentage is of Iranian society, which is frankly much more conservative and found the blandishments either of Ahmadinejad or of the Revolutionary Guard quite convincing. And that leader, whoever he or she is, comes to us and says, so here's the thing, guys, we can quietly cut Hezbollah loose. We can do a bunch of the things that you all want, but we absolutely cannot renounce our right to enrich. And we absolutely cannot say that we have stopped the centrifuges, because that is letting go of the key to Iranian national greatness that our people have been sold for all these years and at all this expense. So if you in the West want our fledgling regime to survive, you're going to have to back off us on enrichment. And I think, that would be a very good case scenario, because you'd have a government that would no longer have any particular reason to use nuclear weapons, but that would be a very hard pill for those in the U.S. and in the West who have really backed themselves into a corner to swallow. So what's the way, if that's the sort of devoutly desired outcome, right? What's the way to leach the poison out of that? And one of the ways to leach the poison out of it is to now make it clear that we would do a deal with Ahmadinejad if he would do a deal with us. Not, we despise his policies on human rights. We despise what he uses Hezbollah to do. But because it's in the larger interest of everybody in the region and us, we would do a deal with him if we thought it could be verified. And that makes it easier for whatever government that would come later to do a deal with us as well. So actually it's, there's every strategic reason to signal that we would do a deal, and there's no reason to signal that we wouldn't.
I disagree with that. Ahmadinejad is still the putative president of, a government that, the leader of a government that the Iranian people and the Iranian opposition believe is illegitimate and was not elected. And as best as I can tell, the Iranian opposition would like the West to sort of make this point that to take their side and to withdraw legitimacy. I think there are other things you can do to withdraw legitimacy from the current regime. So I think that any kind of deal that acknowledges or recognizes Ahmadinejad as the president of Iran potentially undercuts until, and they do have ways of communicating until the opposition movement says otherwise. Now, there is a school of thought that, some people like Flint Leverett say that there really never was much of an opposition and you're holding your breath for nothing and, they're vanquished. I don't think that. Maybe I'm being optimistic, but it's very difficult to know if you're not on the ground, and certainly the regime is quite brutal and terrible. But I think that that they constantly seem to want, Heather, a kind of recognition, and Ahmadinejad wants that recognition as a way to sort of turn back to his opposition and say, no, look, no one's on your side right now. Whereas I think that it's probably a smarter policy to look at ways in this window that was purchased maybe through Stuxnet and other means to figure out the best way to advantage the opposition to Ahmadinejad, and to turn that around and say, this illegitimate government is never going to be able to get the deal that they ultimately want, which is a sort of recognition of the revolution because of all the terrible things they've done to us. So I don't know if
So Eli, I just want to point out that there's a bit of a contradiction there. If you say on the one hand that there is no threat to humanity or Israel or whatever chunk of humanity you want to say as great as the threat of an Iranian nuclear weapon, and then you say, oh, but actually we have this window and we don't need to use it to deal with the Iranian nuclear weapon. We can use it to deal with the problem of regime change in Iran. You have a little consistency.
Well, but Nat, I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think the problem is that the regime itself is the threat, not just to Israel, but the threat to its neighbors. It's this revolutionary regime that's the problem, and that if you let the revolutionary regime get a nuclear weapon, it's even more problematic. So, but the revolutionary regime short of a nuclear weapon, the revolutionary regime with any kind of advanced weaponry or cyber capabilities is a problem. It's the regime, it's the nature of the people who are making those decisions, it's how they view the world.